Okay. Let me pull up one note. Sorry, it's been kind of a crazy morning for me, you guys, which I'm sure happens to you all sometimes. Here we go. I'm gonna grab my notes from last week real quick. If everybody could introduce yourself if you don't know each other, that'll help me kill some time in the background while I pull up my notes. Boris, why don't you introduce yourself to, actually, Don, you guys know each other, right?
Yep, correct.
Awesome. And Dhruv and Rahul, do you guys both know Boris? Yay, nay, okay. All right.
And so Rahul, can you hear us? Okay, maybe not, but yeah, we know Boris.
Okay, good. And then Chetan, did you want to introduce yourself to everyone?
Okay, sure. So my name is Chetan Saigal, and I'm in the compute solutions team at Marvell. I lead that group. So we develop POCs and different solutions for our infrastructure processors. So glad to be here.
Thanks for joining us. Awesome. Okay. So I've got my notes started. And I'd like to kind of dive in. First thing I want to do is sort of talk about what we wanted to do or what we started doing last week and what we finished in these action items. And does anybody want to open with anything? Does anybody have any thoughts that they want to kind of get out there at the beginning of the meeting?
I have one topic, but I can wait, Laura. No problem.
All right. So last week, one of the key things that I wanted to do was start breaking out with key things I wanted to start doing is break out our environments and the status on each environment, right? And the first thing that we talked about was sort of the switch in the actual OPI land. What I really wanted to do is actually sort of like talk about the status of the OPI lab itself, so that we understood what it looked like and what we had to work with going forward, because sort of one of the key things that we're trying to do here is run proof of concepts. The other main thing that we talked about last week was really what the charter is of this group, the scope of the group and our charter, right? So I'll put that here just so everybody can read it. And this isn't completely defined, but this was sort of the sort of line of questioning that we went down. Are we supposed to be doing scripting? Are we just labs only? Or are we writing code beyond scripting? And the main charter that we agreed to, and we haven't entirely finished this, was that we need to test out the code and hardware that other working groups are building. With that in mind, I wanted to get some sense of status on the OPI lab, and we all need to start working to get a couple of more folks on this call. I've done my due diligence. As you can see, Don has joined us today. Any thoughts there, guys?
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay. And hi, Paul, how are you doing? All right, so let's dive into the OPI lab. I don't see I forgot his name from last.
Mirsha?
I don't see
believe
Mirsha
Mirsha.
here.
Yeah. He
So
has posted in Slack in the lab team lab channel. And I will put that in our chat here. He posted a picture of what the lab looks like now.
Okay.
And the status that it's at. We're my understanding is we're waiting on cables and optics, I believe, to connect everything. So it looks like everything, the PDUs are powered up, the all of the keyboard, video, mouse stuff is connected, and all of the like telnet, SSH jump.
Do we have a lab diagram? Has anybody built one?
Yes, yes, he's done that as well.
Okay.
1 second.
Where's the lab located?
It is in Fremont, California. It is in a Hurricane Electric place there. Let me see. Trying to think. Yeah, I think it's in Fremont. I can't remember what number it is they call it, but
Okay,
it's one of their sites.
that's
Right.
convenient.
I'll look for, did he sent it into the POC group? Is it saved as a file? Do you know?
The lab connectivity,
The lab information.
he's got it in the team lab channel on Slack.
The actual team lab channel that's sitting there, not
Yep.
the dev POC, but a team lab.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So this is the connectivity diagram that he sent
Got it.
to Hurricane Electric to ask them to connect everything. At this point, he's waiting
we
for
go.
a couple of devices.
Are you
Or
guys
couple
all in this channel?
What's that?
Is everybody in this group, in this team lab channel? Let me share my screen again. I'll share the screen for the team lab channel in case we need to use it for conversation. And is everybody in this group on Slack?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so you can add this to your channels over here. It's pretty easy. All you have to do is go add channels. If you don't use Slack, browse channels and add team lab.
Mhm.
If you're not already joined there, but we also have the dev POC platform channel, so there might be a little bit of conflict there.
Remember, we are on free plan in Slack, so we created a folder in the GitHub OPI POC under lab, new folder. So I do prefer that we take and make this folder as our main source of truth. So move everything from the Slack that we're having into the proper documentation so everybody can easily find it.
Excellent. And you said that's in I don't
GitHub.
think there's OPI, and is it lab? Is there a lab lab?
OPI POC/lab, yeah. I
Okay.
posted in the chat here. I can post it in the Slack as well.
Could you post in the chat, please?
He did.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm taking notes. And Marcia is basically the one person who's sort of key managing this channel, correct?
Correct.
For us.
He's the one who's,
Yeah.
Sorry, key managing the lab.
yes.
And we kind of need him on this call.
But
There's
once the rack and stack kind of progresses from all the tooling and CI/CD pipelines, we have very strong opinions what we want to use. We don't want to use Jenkins and stuff like that. We want to connect it to our GitHub Actions self-hosted. We need to provision runners. So I have very strong opinions how we need to make all the testing and CI/CD pipelines work. So once this rack and stack progresses a little bit, we need to have a sync meeting to make sure we aligned on the latest tooling that we have to use.
Okay.
But I guess the immediate action is to move all the charts into the GitHub as soon as possible. Otherwise, we're going to lose them, and make this as a proper documentation website that people can go and see the lab status, the access, all of that.
Okay. Yeah, I saw. Thanks, Paul. I'm not seeing everybody. Hold on one second. Bear with me. Stop my share. Give me a minute. Hi, Tim. How are you today? Thanks for joining. All right, I'm gonna go back to my notes.
Boris, I'm unable to upload to that directory. Do you to the OPI POC lab images directory? I was gonna upload that, but it won't let me upload. Is there something someone else I should have do that?
Yeah, you either need to have a write privileges, or you can fork this repository, upload the image, and then create a pull request to the
Okay, got it.
Okay, so without Marcia, it's a little difficult for us to sort of decide, well, I don't know, is it difficult for us to move on today, or what do you guys think?
What else do you need to know about the lab? That
I need, well, if we're not ready, I need to know when things are supposed to show up, right? So when are cables and optics gonna show up? And then once they do show up, what's our baseline plan? For getting everything connected, getting stuff installed, getting stuff loaded, and what's the first proof of concept that we want to build? Do we want to do the one that we just did at F5? Those are the big questions that we need to start answering, right?
And I have a question that
I actually don't want to jump into questions for questions. I actually want to kind of focus on some of the questions that we have. Sorry,
So-
Boris.
we don't know when the optics are showing up yet. So everything's been ordered, things are on back order, and we don't yet have a date for when they're arriving.
Okay,
And no, that's not the greatest info, but that's the info that we have.
fine. It's all right. Sorry, Boris, I apologize. I want to kind of answer my first questions before we start jumping into more.
no worries, no worries.
Okay. So we don't really know what we're doing next steps wise for proof of concept, or we know what we want to do sort of generally, but we don't have a sort of refined plan. So we need to build out our actual plan in this space.
Yeah, so I wanted to propose exactly that, the plan.
Sure, no problem. Go for it.
So in addition to one of demos that we can use the lab for, I think that the main use case for the lab is the CI/CD pipelines.
Correct.
So what we need to do as a next step is, first of all, create runners. Runners can be based on virtual machines or Kubernetes cluster runners. We need to connect those runners to our GitHub organization OPI on GitHub. And then we can create new workflows. We already have workflows that are running on Azure. Now we can create a new workflows that are self-hosted, it's called. So they will be running inside our lab and running all the test cases that we already have on every single either pull request or release version. It's up to us to decide, but we have to fix this infrastructure to have up and running. So every time we do want to run it, even if it's a manual run for now, that's fine. All of that is available through GitHub, but those are the most important things when the lab is up and running.
Okay.
So create runners, connect the runners to the GitHub organization, and then create the workflows. Those are the three, 1, 2, 3 for the CI/CD pipeline.
Thoughts, group?
No, I agree that that's the original intent for the first intent for the equipment that we ordered was to be that CI/CD pipeline. Not so much for demos and POCs, but for that CI/CD pipeline. We would then.
I wasn't aware of that. So why did we, so out of curiosity, okay, never mind. If the goal was to create CI/CD pipelines to tie into workflows to start creating, I'm assuming real world use cases. Is that correct?
To test the code that is being written, yes.
Okay.
That's the number one purpose of the equipment that's in the lab today. We then decided that phase, I don't know what phase we called it, but the next phase would be duplicating the equipment that we have here, duplicating the DPU and server equipment that we have. We don't need additional switches or that sort of thing, but duplicating that equipment that could be used for demos and POCs.
Like traveling demos or?
I think the work that you're wanting to do with the lab space itself would be
Phase two.
on additional equipment that has yet to be ordered, but was put in the budget for this next year of OPI.
Okay, got it. That is very helpful. Okay, so we have essentially two goals. So last week we spent a decent amount of time talking about what we thought our role was, and it seems like there's some clarity that's been provided by the rest of the OPI team.
And I just want to state that our not goal, I think, and we need to at least explicitly state it, is I do not want to expose this lab to free use. People that want to try DPUs,
Yes.
DPUs, and stuff like that, OPI is not doing that. Is not providing free access to the lab to log in and do whatever they want with their cards and servers and equipment.
That was a possible third, fourth, or fifth phase somewhere down the line, but it's not this year or this upcoming year.
So is that, I'm assuming all of that content is in GitHub where all of the notes are, the original charters for this group, am I correct?
Very outdated. The last commit is like 10 or 7 months ago. So we need to just go over the GitHub, I think, in immediate. The most important is to go over the GitHub, make sure that all the documentation is correct. We have the latest updated. So don't assume that it's up to date and latest.
Okay, that's fine. If we want to pivot a little bit, it's good. Thank you, Paul, for joining and giving me that sense of what the original conversation was and the value was, and thank you, Boris, for sort of staying the course on those things. It's helpful for me as I drive this group to get that perspective. So it's really easy for me to project manage you guys if you understand what you want to accomplish. So if everybody is aligned and transparent, and if everybody on the call agrees to that, then we can probably move forward a little bit more easily. But still, I think our key focus right now is when is hardware coming in, and what can we do on the back end in this space, right? In the CI/CD pipeline space to start building the work that we need to do in order to enable this, if everybody is in alignment, because it's not just going to happen in the lab, it's also going to happen outside of the lab. Am I correct?
That code will be, OPI code will be built and tested?
Well,
I'm not sure what outside the lab you meant.
Okay, so what of phase one can we do before we have all the hardware that we need? Because it sounds like we need a lab where we can start building all of this. Is there anything in this phase that can be built or created outside of the lab, or needs to be built or created outside of that lab? Or do we have to wait till everything's there? Or is there stuff that's there already that we can start working on? Or are we kind of in hurry up and wait mode?
The entire phase one.
There.
I'm sorry, that was 3 people that spoke at once.
Mercher, you were saying that something is there?
Yes, I already sent a picture in general. So we have 3 servers installed. The only items pending were the power, which that was in transit for a week now. So it should have arrived. So we should have power, I would say, this week. And the 100 gig cables interconnecting stuff were also not arrived. But without the 100 gig cables, okay, sure, traffic may not pass through and so on, but we can start already provisioning the servers, putting the GitHub private runners on the servers. So I think the moment we get the power on, work can start. And hopefully we have power this week.
Excellent. And I'm sure there are things like configuring the switches and configuring the KVM and configuring those things that need to happen first, right?
So let's start breaking down let's start breaking down all the activities that we need to do once we get power on board.
So configure devices, and there you can enumerate all the devices in the lab as a generic action. And second will be to create images or install for the lab. And we have to agree kind of how we're gonna manage this. Either if we do like Pixie boot for the servers, or we just want to keep them with the image on them, and everybody that works on it, it brings some containers or some VMs, maybe doesn't work directly on the server, and each VM it's going to be set in like pass-through mode when you want to use a NIC, but this way we allow, you know, 3 different VM images if we want to test 3 different things from 3 different vendors. We need to find the solution how we want to organize everything.
Yep.
Mhm. Okay, so I'm gonna do something real quick. I'm gonna take the image that you built of the lab. I'm gonna stretch it out. Oh, that's terrible. Hold on. Bear with me for 1 second, you guys. I'm gonna resize this image from the lab. I want to make it bigger width-wise. It's not gonna work.
We just need to be careful and separate the system under test versus the equipment they're using to run actual tests.
Right. Well, I don't want to jump ahead too fast. I think what we probably need to do is first get some agreement on, well, it sounds like we're all aligned on kind of the direction we want to go in. And now once we have the direction we want to go in, how do we start thinking about, right? We've got these 3 servers that are all DPU hosts. I'm sorry, you guys probably can't see these very well. Close all that. We've got these 3 servers here that are DPU hosts. Looks like we have a top of rack switch, and then we've got our KVM. What I'd like to do is talk about what needs to be configured first and what the goal is of that configuration. And what's this down here?
That
Marsha?
is that's the 100 gig, 100 or 200 gig switch, Marsha.
Okay.
That's a 100 gig switch,
100
the
gig.
one which is a
Okay.
pinkish color at the bottom. I mean, middle of the rack.
Okay.
Yeah.
So first thing is I need a KVM and the serial connection to at least have IPs. And
Okay.
so we need to solve remote access in there, and who's going to get remote access. So let's say I'm setting all this up initially. Let's say I'll get access, but then I assume you will want access, Boris will want access, and we need to make a list of people that should have access so we can discuss with HE how we get the access. Then we have to have the IPs assigned, and my solution will be here to have a DHCP server, but we all need to agree on this, a DHCP server, and we have the MAC of all the devices, and we have a MAC IP table stored statically in our, in our DHCP servers to ensure that they always get the same IP when they come back up.
Okay.
Where is the additional equipment, Mersha, that is going to run the HTTP server and everything else? Because those 3 hosts that you show here with DPUs is system under test. So where is it?
Yeah, it has not arrived.
Ah.
It's a 3rd item on the list that hasn't arrived. But we can agree on this, and we can configure one of the servers as an interim solution to get going through the motions. Like I can create a VM, something, and install it in one of the servers and start doing this. And then it's just a matter of moving the DHCP configuration from the VM to the other server, or just moving the VM altogether.
Yep. That
How
makes
many
sense.
servers supposed to arrive for DHCP and the other stuff which is not servers?
So far for running scripts, DHCP kind of thing like this, we only agreed to buy 1 server. Now there is one thing. So far we have spent, I think, around 60 to 70K on all the gear. I'll have to do a tally with Shida, but we got 100K approved. So if we really need more, I think we have money to buy more.
Yep.
Right.
Agreed.
So I think one of the things that's kind of going on in the back of my head is We need to define the hardware that has arrived, which you have. And then we need to talk about the hardware that hasn't arrived, which I know you have on backlog.
It's
And
on
then-
Slack, yeah.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, there is a Slack channel about the lab and I posted there.
Yes.
How the right what's pending, yes.
Boris has requested that we move all of that content to GitHub so that it's living in a place that we aren't using just for free. I support either way or both. We could probably have it in both depending on what's easiest for folks. I don't tend to play very well in GitHub. I prefer to use Slack, but I'm happy to support us doing due diligence in both places.
Laura, just to explain to you, because we are on free Slack, we are going to
Yeah.
we are losing messages, right? Old messages have been auto-deleted. So anything on Slack cannot be viewed as persistent storage. We will lose all of that.
I totally get that, and I think we should put it in both places. I'm just saying for ease of use, it's probably a little faster and easier to put stuff on Slack, but we need to
Makes
put
sense.
we need to do the due diligence of putting it in both places. So I'm supporting your comment about making sure stuff goes to GitHub. Back to my original point, we need to cover what we plan on doing and cover what we can do, and we need to have plans for both that are pretty clear so that we can have handoff and follow on. And then we need to talk about what's our first step and then what's our second step, third step, etc., while we're waiting for other hardware. So that's going to take a little bit more time than just a 1 hour meeting that we have. So I need folks to sit down and volunteer to have a little side conversation about how we projectize this, if everybody wants to be involved.
Let's agree on the plan, I think.
So
Marsha, I think we can agree what the next steps, because we know what needs to be done, right? So we can really detailize it and make sure that we check all the V's after each and every one complete. We have to have DHCP servers. We have to have either ESXi or KVM with VM management on one of the servers. So we need to pick one server to do that. Then we need to connect to install runners. We need to connect it to GitHub. DHCP server will produce IPs for all the servers and all the DPUs independently. I think that's the next steps, immediate ones, until we wait for other equipment to arrive, and then we can migrate and change as we go.
Okay, so that is a phenomenal summary of what we need to do next. I would like to work with probably you, Boris, and you, Marcia, to get that to paper if it isn't already, or get anything to paper that hasn't been put to paper. And then we need to take that information, and I'm sorry, I'm going on video now because being able to see other people's faces is pretty helpful in these kinds of conversations. We need to take that information and then start spelling it out from a task list perspective. And that's the project manager in me that's kind of asking you guys to put some detailed focus on this. And Marcia, I know you already have put a significant amount of detailed focus on this. So let's take what you've already built and make it into a full project plan, which looks at what we can do now, what we can do as hardware comes in, and what we're planning on doing later. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Marcia and Boris, can I get time from you guys to do this outside of this meeting? Because this meeting is going to be more of a conversation until we actually have all of those tasks put into place and onto paper, and all that work put to paper.
yes, and
Yes.
if it's in the second half of the day, so I'm on West Coast, and if it's after 12,
Mhm.
I can be in a Teams or Zoom meeting for like an hour, 2 hours. I have more time available, or I can be next to computer and actually have a working session.
Perfect. All right. Does anybody else want to join that working session, either today or some other day this week? Besides you, Marcia, and I, and possibly Boris. Boris, do you want to be involved in that?
I can
No, Paul.
send it to me, huh? You're saying no?
You can't.
Okay,
You can sit in on it and you can listen. Okay.
okay,
Don't overcommit yourself. Can anybody else
always
join that?
doing that.
Okay, unfortunately, so we can start actively participating come January. Would that be okay?
That's fine. That's fine, Chetan. What we need to do is figure out what the work looks like before we start saying these are all the things we want to do. because we need to get that, all the things we want to do to paper. And when it's an in notes conversation, when it's an inline conversation, it gets everywhere. And when it's sitting on different tools and different tooling, we say it out loud. I put it in my notes. Boris has a picture, Marcia has a picture. I'm trying to aggregate that picture. And in one working session, that's not just this meeting, because this meeting is sort of what do we want to do, where do we want to go? And once we know where we want to go, we actually need to put some focus time on building what that picture looks like. So if you want to listen into that meeting this afternoon, you're welcome to. If you don't feel like you can contribute to that, that's okay. If you can't until January, then we plan on you for January, but by next week or the week after, it'd be really nice for us to have sort of a baseline plan of what we're doing, who's doing it, and when they're doing it.
Sure.
Does that sound good to you
No,
guys?
absolutely. It's definitely going to be very useful to
Okay.
be in that group.
Boris, does that
Essentially,
work
by
for
the
you?
end of the year, we'll have the GitHub runners running.
Okay.
So
And obviously, I mean, people can do work outside of a project plan, right? Because project plans are usually pretty stiff and a little uncomfortable, and people don't always fit in that space, right? It ends up becoming more fluid. But from a talking about this project and talking about this work perspective, it's really important that we have a clean picture of what we're trying to do. Okay, because then it becomes, I want to do this over here, and I want to do this over here, and I want to do this over here. And it's really about aggregating your voices in one place so that we can all see it. So Marcia, I will schedule time with you this afternoon for you and I to sync. Boris, do you want to attend that, or is that not going to work for you today?
Sure, I'll join.
Okay, great.
And I
And
created the
that way-
outline in Slack already, so we can use that as a skeleton and work on that, because that is a very detailed plan what we should do in the near term.
Okay, great, perfect. That's awesome. Create credentials to lab access and storage. So these next steps are for the things that we already have in-house. Am I correct? Or do you see that as hardware that we both do and don't have in-house?
Are you sharing anything? No.
I'm not. Hold on.
All of that can be done today without additional hardware needed.
Okay, so that's what I want to do. I want to separate what we can do with what we have in-house versus what we can do, what we have to wait to do.
All of this can be done today, yes.
Okay.
So Linux Foundation already gave us one password. We save all the password there and manage the access for different teams. So we need to get lab access management into the same one password vault that we're using. We need to pick one of the 3 servers and declare it as management intermediate until the new hardware arrives. We need to create several virtual machines. And I listed what are those. And then we can connect those self-hosted runners to a GitHub organization. And that is the great plan for the upcoming couple of weeks, I guess.
Okay. And then we need to talk about who's doing what.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Questions from the room?
Just one question on the ARM server. It does not show the DPU card on that, while the other two have.
no, it has arrived without a DPU card. In the ARM server, it was just an ARM server donation, I think, from the ARM team. So yeah, that's how it was shipped. We can have the DPU in there.
Okay, so the plan is to have the DPU, or will it remain without DPU?
I would say there is no plan as such. Like I said, it was a donation from the ARM team. So
Yeah,
this is how they donated the server. The server has arrived. We can make a plan.
Okay.
Or if somebody is from ARM, they can say if they had any plan to send also a DPU later, or we can put a NIC in it and use it for what was their
Okay.
intention for the server.
Okay, I'll talk to Mark and see if we need to do something about that.
Yeah, so do be aware of the fact that right now, and not that we don't want, we definitely want DPUs on those. Thanks, Boris. Do be aware of the fact that ARM DPUs aren't currently running very well on ARM servers. So that's more of a long-term conversation.
I see.
but
Okay.
it'll get there. I know that
Yeah.
everybody's sort of working on that problem, solving that problem in the background. So it's not going to be our first priority. Do we have any x86 servers in that rack, or are they all ARM servers?
Except one.
The
of them
first
x86.
two, yeah. The first two are x86.
Okay, so those are the servers that we want to get DPUs into ultimately.
They already have DPUs.
Okay.
First one, top one, I think it's Pensando. I think there are labels on it already. Pensando, and the bottom one, I think it's the middle one, it's a Bluefield 2.
Okay, yeah, I need to go over all this with you guys. That's part of that'll help me get us.
Yeah, and
certain
as this is finalized, I'll put like for all these devices, like their PDF with a user guide, exact part number. So in case somebody needs to update the firmware, they know exactly what they need to download. And so in GitHub, we'll have all this specified.
Okay.
For me, what I'm waiting now to make any progress is to get the power on.
Right.
That's basically we have a bunch of hardware and we don't have power. So that's like the most critical next item.
Yeah, there's critical next items and then there's our long-term stuff. So we need to map that out. Hardware doesn't have some.
And Mersha, if I remember correctly, Intel said they're going to send Mount Evans with Intel server as well, right? As a package.
Yeah, yes, I will ping again Dan daily to see if, but when I pinged him last time, they didn't have one to send or was
Maybe
ready.
Laura, for you to track maybe the arrival of Intel server with Intel IPU as a separate item that we can ping Intel and see where it is.
I'll ping. We can ping Dan daily, and I can also ping Eric Valor. Arrival of. He's not at PI.
I think also a Marvel DPU like a CN106 was in the books, and maybe that can go in the ARM server if Marvel sends one, or we need to buy one.
We can put anything we want in the ARM servers right now, but it's going to probably, I don't know. Dhruv, you might be able to answer this. Is there a timeline or is there a project looking at how we get ARM servers to be ARM DPUs to be able to run on ARM servers?
Well, I'm myself trying to get first one. I'm trying a Marvel DPU, and I'm still haven't gotten it to working.
Okay.
There are some problems with the firmware, so yeah, I don't have a timeline right now.
Do you need help with connections at Marvel? Because we can get you directly connected with anybody. At
I already am in touch with those guys. I'm having a call also tomorrow.
Okay. I don't want to question that. I just sometimes, you know.
Yeah, I know. Thank you.
Sometimes we can push things from our end because we're partner vendors.
Right.
They get excited when we start saying, "Oh, well, we might be able to sell this," and then they go, "Oh, okay, right." So, arrival of Intel server and arrival of Intel HW need a CN1026. Yeah, just Dhruv, let us know anything that we can do to support you. Okay.
Sure.
Happy to
Thank
help
you
you
so
in
much.
whatever way we can.
Yeah.
Okay, so we need a CN1026. We need the Intel server and Intel DPU. And I think any x86 server could technically be fine in this place, but when we're talking about Intel servers, Tim or Paul, do you have any visibility into this? Would this be, what would that hardware be?
Intel said they will package the server with the IPU that they feel comfortable with and send it as a package, so we don't have a choice of putting IPUs on different servers. They want to see it in Intel specific server.
Okay, got it.
And if something changed, then they can, give you a latest news on this. But this is what was agreed.
If I remember right, they were saying somewhere in the November, December timeframe, they might have something for us. So, and we're there now, so it makes sense to ask.
So Paul, I will invite you to this meeting. You can listen so that you're informed. You're not allowed to do anything. And I'm going to put more than an hour on the calendar for this afternoon. Actually, I'll put an hour on the calendar for us to just I think you guys have enough information that we can encapsulate at least the baseline in an hour.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Okay. It's hard to be the one that's typing and talking. Bear with me, I'm setting up that meeting invite, guys, so if I'm not talking, that's why. Everybody tell each other about your hobbies. That was supposed to be funny.
It is.
Thank you.
So
Appreciate
Paul,
that.
your understanding on the Intel, right? They're gonna send us a server with their IPU installed in that server. But the IPU, once we have it in our lab, we'll still be able to provision the IPU using our provisioning workflows? Or do we have to stick with the firmware they stuck on it?
No, we'll be able to do what we need to with it, is my understanding.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe they just want to maximize the success, right? By having it in a known server that has known good cooling and stuff for their card.
Yeah.
Especially
it's
because they have
modular.
3/4 length cards, so there are challenges. This is why they want to prepackage it. Yeah.
It's the same like we did with Dell and HP. We bought qualified servers that were shipped from factory, let's say, with the Pensando and the Bluefield 2. So we don't run into any issues.
Yep. They're
we-
just that since they don't have a public list of qualified servers yet, as far as I know, they were going to build one that is, you're not seeing my air quotes, but air quotes qualified.
Okay,
Well, that's not a surprise, right? I don't think you can buy a Mount Evans today retail, right?
Correct.
okay. I will ask Dan Daly about this. If he doesn't know, he will tell me who to talk to. And then this is a Marvell ask. Is there anybody on the call that can help us with this? A possible
This
CN.
is what? What do you have highlighted?
Oh, sorry, the CN 1026. Am I in the wrong, showing the wrong screen? Yeah,
No, I see it. I just wasn't sure where your cursor was.
the CN 1026.
Yeah, we see it.
Yeah, I think, is that Santananda? Is he the one to talk to about that?
I can
Hi,
check.
Rahul from Marvel. Me or Chetan can check and get back regarding this.
Okay.
It makes it easier if I don't have to do everything. Thanks, you guys. I appreciate that. Okay. Don, do you have any take on anything, or are you just soaking this up?
Right now, just absorbing, making
Okay.
sure that I know what's going on, and then I'll start to get some time on my plate to contribute more effectively.
Do you want to be in that meeting this afternoon? And does anybody else, again, want to be in that meeting this afternoon? The invite just went out to Boris, Paul, and Mersha.
Put me on it. If I have the time, I will
As
join.
optional. Got it.
Thanks.
Okay. Chetan and Rahul, I know you guys can't start really contributing until January, but if you want to be involved, you can listen in this afternoon.
What time is it?
Sure.
It's 1 p.m. Pacific.
Okay, Rahul, it's going to be 2:30 in the morning for you.
Yeah.
Oh, are you
So I
guys
can join.
are you guys in India? Sorry.
I'm based out of India, so
What
I'm in Santa Clara.
you're in Santa Clara. Okay. Rahul, do you want to join? You're welcome to.
actually,
sorry, are you-
Yeah.
Are you in Chetan? Are you in Santa Clara? I wasn't sure who was talking there because Rahul lit up.
Yeah, I'm Chetan. So I'm in Santa
You're in
Clara.
Santa Clara.
Rahul is in India.
I'll invite you. Just
Okay, sure.
send me your email address over Slack.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks, guys. Okay, so we have technically 13 minutes left. Is there anything else that we want to cover before this afternoon?
If nobody has any topic, I wanted to bring one topic, but
Please
I'll
do.
wait for if
No, go
anybody
ahead.
wants to speak up.
Go ahead, Boris.
Okay, perfect. So I think that there is one thing that is missing from OPI that could really speed up and help our customers and to ramp up with DPUs and IPUs, and really can help boost the ecosystem a lot. So I created these two GitHub repositories, PyDPU and GoDPU. And what I think we should do is, what I want to create is very similar to what Linux created for NVMe CLI. So the command line tool and the library that customers can easily install in Python, in Go, and other languages, but it's fine to start with those two because those are repositories that I created. And we have quite a bit of content already there. But what my goal is and my vision is to create a CLI tool that customers can install and use those tools to operate and with DPUs and IPUs. In all aspects of DPUs and IPUs. For example, if we're doing lifecycle management, we want to send a command to reboot DPU. We want to send a command to install operating system. We want a command to create a storage volume. We want a command to create a networking volume. So we already have this kind of framework and separation in those tools. But what I want is to take it several steps further, advertise it as such, socialize it, evangelize it, whatever, and ramp up to create this really great tool for ecosystem that customers can really easily talk to all the different DPUs in a vendor agnostic way, and with vendor not agnostic way, vendor specific way, using plugins. Similar approach that NVMe CLI took with different plugins. I'm going to send a few links in the chat so people can start looking at these things. And I'm just wondering if people
So
have any
so
opinion.
Boris, this tool would run on its own node or on the host that's local to the DPU?
It is going to run on your laptop, on your machine, on your VM, and this will allow you to basically manage DPUs and IPUs in your data center.
Over a network.
Over the network, exactly.
Okay. So
And if
it's a
DPUs,
remote-
IPUs communicate with Redfish commands or gRPC commands or whatever we have, this tool will abstract it and will provide a way to communicate with most common things that usually
And-
customers want from the DPUs.
And will we test the tool and list the DPUs we've tested it against?
Absolutely, and we manage releases, right? Every time we feel comfortable, we manage backlog, we create a new feature in this tool, we can create a release, publish it. This is one of the artifacts that I want OPI as a great project on the Linux Foundation to produce as an artifact. So we can release version 1, version 2, version 3, add more DPU vendors, add more features.
Yeah,
and
I like the idea a lot, Boris. And it seems like if there's a problem with a DPU, a particular DPU, we would put that back on the DPU vendor to help solve the problems, or?
Yes, absolutely.
Because I mean, if it's working on 3 DPUs and we test it on a 4th and there's problems, it's related to that DPU. So
Absolutely, and we can split responsibility between the common commands that are supposed to be work on everybody, and we can test it in our lab with CI/CD pipelines that we talked about previously in the beginning of the meeting. And we can also have vendor extensions that some vendor came up with a cool feature that other vendors don't support. That's fine, and NVMe CLI also support that kind of plugin option. So it will be vendor specific, but everybody who wants to work with DPUs can just go and pip install or go install PyDPU or GoDPU, and with DPU list, DPU upgrade, DPU something, a command can manage DPUs in the data center. In addition to that, it's not just CLI tool, it's a library. So if orchestration system that people already have, like F5 and others, that want to use DPUs, they can just import the library and integrate those commands into the existing tooling. We can create Ansible plugins for the DPUs and APUs as well. So there are a lot of responsibilities here, but I think that part is really important, and I think OPI missed a goal of making this a priority.
And you think this is under the purview of the POC working group?
I mean, POC working group should give examples on how to use this tool, yeah, and create POCs around it to.
Yeah, I think we could start it, but it might evolve into its own working group or something at some point.
I don't disagree. I don't disagree, Tim.
Uh,
I do think that we're already using those tools today for testing. So PI POC group is going to use that tool already today for CI/CD. But who develops the tool? Currently, it's a common effort. But maybe we'll need to spin up a new working group just for creating those tools and managing.
Yeah, I mean, eventually, if it's an artifact with a release train supported over time, it's going to need its own working group. I think. Could you write a short document for us that sort of says intent and scope and non-scope, so we can put it in front of the TSC?
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, I don't want you to go overboard, just basically what you just said verbally, but
Yeah.
put it on paper.
Yeah.
Or put it in a markdown, right?
While it's a goal, I a bit disagree with the work group. This is like a feature. It's like whenever somebody adds a functionality, must have support for CLI, must have support for API, must have documentation, must have test. That doesn't mean we need to make a docs work group and
No,
I mean, it's like
but
mandatory
he
thing.
is trying to make an artifact for the community, right? And make it part of OPI's work responsibilities to maintain that artifact. That's the proposal that I hear Boris asking for.
Yeah, same with documentation, same with everything. But I mean, it's like
No, but
mandatory things.
I agree with Tim because this needs focus, and in order to have focus, we need a dedicated group for it. Probably, I'm not sure. Yes, absolutely. Everybody that have a new feature can contribute to that, but in order to really manage releases and make it a common tool, there should be some kind of infrastructure around it.
Yeah, I mean, if your point is, Merce, that maybe it shouldn't be part of the POC work group, I think that's up for debate for sure. I think Boris is just floating the idea here first.
No, that was not my point. But I understand Boris' point that it needs a focus group. I think for the first releases, while the infrastructure is created for it. But once it exists and it's, let's say, past first, second release, it should just be everybody should deliver CLI and whatever for their features once the infrastructure is in place.
Right, but somebody has to roll up the release and do the testing and certification, right? To say that, hey, this new release has been tested on existing DPUs and any new ones we've added. And maybe we've added a few new commands, CLI commands. I don't know. I think it's a bigger.
Yeah, like every project, it needs to have a roadmap, backlog, issue triage. Like if we want to develop it as a true open source project, it have to have kind of structure.
I think this group here would use the crap out of it once it exists. It would be very helpful to us in the POC group.
So I think the upshot of this, or the thing that I heard directly, Boris, was an ask to you to capture this in a way that we can start evangelizing it outside of this group. Am I correct?
I'm taking this action item, yes.
Wonderful. Any other thoughts, Tim?
No.
Okay. All right, I'll see.
Probably we should discuss it in TSC after Thanksgiving.
I agree. It does need. So when we kind of started talking about this last week, and I suggested that we bring it up in TSC, and I'm glad that you're here today to consume that from Boris. And Boris, thank you for continuing to bring this up. It's an important topic. All right, I will see some of you this afternoon, and I really appreciate everybody joining this morning. I know that, or this evening, depending on where you live. And Rahul, I apologize that it's so late for you. Thank you for putting the time on your calendar to participate in this. We love having you here.
No problem. Thank you.
Awesome. All right, thanks everybody. Have a wonderful day. I have notes that I have to figure out where they live now. I will talk to you this afternoon, Boris, and the rest of the crew.
Cheers.
So generally, Laura, the notes we've been putting on the wiki, right?
It seems like different teams do different stuff with their notes.
Okay.
So we're trying to do stuff in GitHub, and I need to figure out how to attach a GitHub wiki. Paul showed me at one point, and it's something that I kind of need to return to and ask him again. So I just get tired of constantly turning to Paul and being like, Paul, can you show me how to do this? I'm so used to using Microsoft tools that sometimes I get a little embedded in those, and they're very easy for me to use. So when I have to stop, when I have to be tool agnostic, there's a little bit of a learning curve sometimes. Paul, you were going to say something.
Sure, I can show you again.
Well, no, I don't want to use that markup, honestly, Boris, no offense.
No, I'll show you where to put it in the lists.opiproject.org wiki.
From my notes perspective, gotcha. I didn't realize there was that tertiary spot.
Yep.
I was trying to put my notes in Google Docs, so that because you can share those via GitHub, but I mean via Slack. If there's a way to do the wiki in the OPI projects lists that also attaches to GitHub, that would be great. Is that what you were showing me, Paul, or is that a different space?
It's how Joe creates his notes for the TSC.
Okay. Is there linking in that?
Don't have any idea.
Can anybody answer if there's linking in that? There should be if it's wiki.
Links, yes.
Yeah, okay. I know that we can technically reuse these the recordings on these calls as our notes. It just seems like with this specific working group, there's so much detail for what we have to do, at least for a little while, that and so much tracking of detail for a little while that we've got to find out kind of another way, because we have to build out a project plan, and it can't just be, there's no GitHub related tool besides Atlassian, which is essentially agile, and we're not partnering in a way that's quote unquote agile here right now. And I don't know how Atlassian tools tie into GitHub. They don't really do what we are sort of building out right now, which is hardware related. Therefore, it's sort of more waterfall.
But Laura, did you try the GitHub projects and GitHub discussions? Maybe
not at all.
That,
not one
I
bit. Not one bit have I done that, Boris.
I posted 2 links for you. It doesn't require any commits or anything like that. You can manage it pretty easily. And GitHub projects is like managing a project. So we can try it out and see if it fits your needs. Again, I'm not against any tool. I'm just proposing 2 options: discussions and GitHub projects. So could be interesting for you. No.
So yeah, the only problem is that I have to learn a whole new tool. And I know how to use the tools I know how to use historically, but that doesn't mean I won't take a look at it and try it. And thank you for these links, Boris. I'll add them to my notes in the background or my to-do lists.
Okay, I got to drop for my next one.
Yeah,
Thanks.
I'll see you guys this afternoon.
Okay, bye guys.
Bye.